Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the future of the water and wastewater industry and the careers you didn't know about. And again, we are live on location at the lovely Ocean's Edge Resort on Cape Cod for our CTAWWA, AWWA, or CWA conference. And with us on this episode is an old friend of mine who has worked with the industry many, many years, Mr. Mark Anderson. Hi, Mark. How are you?
Morning, Dave.
Fantastic. So, you're on the more on the supply side of the industry. You worked throughout Ferguson. You've worked, I think you were back in Caldwell, too, weren't you?
Started with George A. Caldwell Company in 1980.
Nice. So you've certainly no stranger to the industry and how it's evolved. So tell us how you got into the industry.
Well, it could be a long story, but I'll give you the short version.
That's all right.
I got married. We bought a condo, and in the condo building was a gentleman who had a sales job with George A. Caldwell Company, and he was leaving to take another job with Badger Meter, and he suggested I interview, and I got the job.
Nice. Okay. And Caldwell was obviously a supply company that supplied everything to the water industry. I can remember making many trips over to Southington, to pick up curb boxes, valves, brass, and you name it.
Back in the day when I first started, the suppliers, obviously they joke I was the honorable salesman. So I had the sales role for Connecticut. But back in the day, we only sold water stuff.
Yep.
Years later, it became a supermarket where they added the sewer stuff and the drainage stuff and pipe locators and all kinds of technology, and you became a real supermarket. But back in the day, we were primarily a water supply house: water, sewer, valves, hydrants, stuff like that.
Sure, yeah. Obviously, from that day, how has the industry changed as far as the the products that are being supplied today? I know, I can remember going over and picking up clamps with 12-bolt clamps, 6-bolt, depending on what size pipe and so forth. And now that has evolved. Yeah.
Well, when I first started, we were selling double disc gate valves. We had a wedge that came down and spread these two discs against bronze seats to seal the valve. There was allowable leakage in those. Was like 6 ounces per hour, like a Coke can or something worth of leakage. And then they changed to what's known as resilient seated valves. It's a totally rubber encapsulated wedge that went down, and that gave you a bubble tight seal. So that was a big change in the industry. And then now, most recently, I've seen that we used to sell those repair clamps you're talking about, and single row, double row, but now a lot of those I sold in the 80s, they're replacing them because the iron lugs have rotted out.
Yep.
So now the big trend is everything is all stainless steel. The bolts, the nut, everything's stainless steel. So the trend now is going a lot of stainless steel.
Yeah. Also, from a standpoint of size-wise, I mean, back then, you had to, depending on the type of pipe that you were putting on, you had an A gasket and a B gasket, depending on the pipe diameters. Now, all of the clamps are, one size fits all, one bolt, and
that was mostly repair clamps had a big enough range, but what you're talking about is OD, outside diameter of the pipes, and you had older cast iron pipe that was fatter and the ductile pipe was thinner, and so you had to, that was the main question when somebody called up and said, look, I need a coupling. I said, well, what size, what kind of pipe do you have? And we'd have to determine what was older or new, and I still have on me at all times a Smith Blair OD chart. It's just habit. I've had it my whole life.
Yeah.
And so you found out the OD, and then you were able to tell them, okay, you need, like you say, the AB gasket or the CD. The CD was the fatter old cast iron pipe, so it was thinner gasket, and then the AB was the ductile, was a fatter gasket. So you had to figure out exactly what kind of pipe they had to give them the right product. But now they're going, like you say, to one size fits all. They have the Hymax clamp started it all, and it's got a range on it, and you could either tear out part of the gasket if you needed to fit whatever, but that one gasket will do old or new, and it's made things a lot simpler. And the guys in the field, and they also went to, instead of like 8 bolts all around the coupling, they go to 1 bolt that's on the top.
Yeah.
And like Smith Blair calls theirs 1 bolt. And so you had that bolt, and it was, if you were smart, you put that bolt up on the top, so
Absolutely.
it was easy access, and you weren't underneath pipes.
Yeah, you're
trying to
underneath,
tighten
especially if you got ledge underneath the pipe, 2 inches underneath the pipe.
There
You're
you
trying to
go.
get and ratchet to get the bolt tight. That's what a pain. Yeah,
Yep.
I've been there and done that. You know, so okay. So you're with George Caldwell. Okay, so then what was the next transition?
Oh, I stayed with them for about 10 years, went from a salesman, later became the branch manager. In the branch, they moved from Southington to Bristol. And then, sad story, but they kind of went out of business and were going out of business. And I left and went to Public Works Supply for a short amount of time. But then I kind of ended up with Ed Mahalik at Eastern Pipe Products Company on the Berlin Turnpike. That later became HD Supply. That became Ferguson.
Yeah.
And then he left later and started HD Supply, which is now Core and Main.
Yeah.
And I've worked at all of them.
Okay, been there and done that.
Been there, done that. Yep.
I hear you. You know, and again, as that transition, you know, and you know, one of the things that I tell, you know, a lot of my students, okay, going through the, you know, and like you've been in the business a long time, you know a lot of people, but the power of networking, because people don't realize how important that is, to be able to, you know somebody that knows you, that knows them, and you know, because you never know when you're going to need something.
That's
okay,
right.
or somebody
Yep.
that to fix a problem or whatever, and say, hey, Mark, what do you think I need to do this? And it works both ways. It really does.
Well, that was the key thing you said, problem, fix a problem. I considered myself a problem solver.
Sure.
And I wanted to let my customers know that they could depend on me.
Yep.
And I would get their problem solved, and I would not stop until, you know, such time as, you know, we solved the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, whether it's a leak or whether, you know, again, selling it out, because you guys also sell pipe too now, right? Correct?
Yeah, sure.
So now, what are the big pipe manufacturers? I know Griffin was out there. Who's out there now?
Pretty much it's U.S. Pipe, McWane, and American.
Okay.
Are the three. Griffin got bought up, I think, by U.S. Pipe.
Okay. Yeah, and obviously the size, you know, the types of pipe. You know, we had the old pit cast. You had the old cast iron. You know, we had ductile iron. You know, and even went through transite asbestos cement. Now, how did that transition happen into when asbestos cement came on the scene?
I think that was manufactured first by Johns Manville.
Yeah.
And they had asbestos cement, other products, and they came out with for the pipe. I think that was like the early 80s, right after or right when I first started. And it proved not too long later that it wasn't a great idea.
No.
And so that went kind of by the wayside. But now it's predominantly, you know, ductile iron. The good thing about ductile versus cast is if you hit cast iron, it would split.
Yeah.
You'd get a long crack on the pipe. Where ductile doesn't do that. You hit it, it might puncture, but it won't run long cracks.
Right.
So it's a lot easier to repair, and it's more sturdy and less with the coatings now. And now they're coming out with even this plastic wrap that they'll put around the pipe. And
For
if
corrosion.
you get, and now they've got even zinc lining on the pipe, which is another corrosive inhibitor. And with the zinc lining and the wrap on the pipe, they'll guarantee the pipe to last, you know, like 100 years.
Wow. Well, again, one of the things when they promoted, going go back to the transite, this was the best thing since sliced bread. You know, it's lighter. It's you know, they had you know, the cement lining on it and so forth. And the trouble is, when you got a leak in asbestos cement, you didn't get a circular crack. You got to blow out in a section, and more than likely you were replacing a length of pipe.
And it was so mushy once it got exposed, that you fix one problem and end up with another problem.
Exactly, and you know, hence the asbestos cement issue and all that kind of stuff. So it's but there's still a lot of transite still out there.
Oh yeah, I remember. I recently retired, but I remember there was a few towns, Southington being a major one, in New Britain as well. They had a lot of AC, and unfortunately, Southington had like, I'm pretty sure they have like 14 inches, an oddball size on top of it.
Really? Wow.
Right down Route 10 in Southington.
Yep, yep.
And then they used to call me a lot of times. I would get calls in the middle of the night, and because they say, hey, I need this, and I got a break. Can you get me a clamp or bring me this? And I would get up and I'd go get into the place and I'd get it and I'd deliver it to job sites.
Any job necessary, and that's where that customer service. You're a problem solver, Mark, and so forth. Right. Trying to transition. I know you've been a part of the section for many, many years. You're a big key component of the Associates Committee. Tell us a bit about your involvement in the Associates Committee.
Well, the Associates Committee is a group of vendors, suppliers like myself, engineers, other service providers to the section, to the industry. And it was started in the early 80s by a man named Al Dion, who worked at Groton Water.
Yeah.
And I got involved early with him and kind of like a charter member. And at one point or another, because it was a New England-wide group, I didn't want to travel if I didn't have to. And so I told the guys, well, if you keep the meetings at Ferguson and Newington, I'll be the secretary for life.
Okay.
So I was the secretary for life.
It's amazing. You mentioned Al Dion, and Al Dion was the man that got me involved in the section.
No kidding.
Years ago. He reached out to me, hey, you're young in the industry. We need some people like you. We'd like to, get you on a committee and so forth. And, and the rest is history. I've been involved for a long time, but Al was the man that was the guy that made it all happen. So to go for it. Again, the Associates Committee, I think you're an integral part of the section. Obviously, you supply a lot of the funding for the conferences here, and the speakers. You're getting the speakers and so forth. And I know your compadre that used to be the mainstay, Mr. Bobby D.
Oh yeah, Bobby D.
Yeah.
Saw him the other day. We had a little chat about the old days.
Yeah. And is he doing okay?
He's doing well.
Good.
Yeah, he's spent a lot of time in his cottage down at the beach in Westbrook near the Elks Club.
Okay.
Bobby D was a big Elks guy.
Yeah, Seaside Avenue. Yeah, for sure. Go on there. So anyway, we see a lot of the posters here for the Connecticut section. Basically, I think with the enhancers, obviously. Now, are you partially retired, fully retired, or what?
I'm fully retired as of January 13th of 2023.
There you go. Well, as of probably about that time next year, I'm going to be fully retired.
Good for you.
I've been with Portland. Coming January 1, I take over my 50 years. So it's time to say okay. Yeah. And that's the when I launched this podcast is that we're the industry is getting old. It's just like the infrastructure, and it's time to change things out a little bit. And
but I have this feeling, Dave, that you'll still do something. You're a doer. You're going to stay busy. I'm the other side of the coin. Once I retired, and COVID had a little bit to do with it, where I kind of was, everybody was a little bit afraid to go outside, and I was older and afraid you're going to catch something, I'm very happy just staying at home or getting involved in family and things, and I don't need to work. But I got a feeling you're going to keep going.
Well, like my son tells me, Dad, you're like a shark. If you stop swimming, you'll die.
Well, let's hope not. Yeah,
for sure. So anyway, but you've been at the conference, as long as I can remember. You're a staple here at the conference, and so how does this year's conference fare out?
Oh, they're always great. It's fun, like you say, the networking, to get together and see everybody and renew friendships, and it's just a great thing. And my first one was in 1982 at a place called the Seacrest out on the Cape. I don't know if it's even there anymore.
Yeah.
But that was the first one I remember going to, and I've pretty much been to everyone since. And it's transitioned a lot, but it's still a very valuable, fun, important industry event to attend. And if you're going to be like myself, a salesman, you need to get involved. You need to support the organizations, and you need to show up, and you need to donate your time. And I one thing I found was important was mentorship, and I try to mentor some of the younger guys, because I was extremely lucky to have some really great men in the waterworks industry mentor me. One was James McInerney, who was just a fabulous guy, who was such a friend to me, and the other was Mr. Calhoun up at Torrington Water. Both of these guys were presidents of private water companies, and for some reason they saw something in me and mentored me, and my whole career, their door was open to me, and they were just great, fabulous men. So mentorship's important.
Well, and that's where that networking comes in, and because you had a problem, you had a question, they could ask you, you could ask them, and say, Dick, how do I fix this, or what do I do? And it's a resource there, and that knowledge base. Unfortunately, with as succession planning goes with a lot of the companies these days. You got the old guy walking out this door, the new guy walking in this door, never the twain shall meet. And it's like there's a lot of knowledge base that could be learned, from mentoring and, shadowing and, bringing stuff on. But
that was one important thing for me. I always try to know everybody. From the superintendent and the guys you dealt with that make the decisions, down to the foreman and the crew guys, so that when the foreman or superintendent, whoever was retiring, you knew the guy was next in line coming along.
Yep. And
you never wanted to make the guys in the crew doing the work feel like all you cared about was the guys in the office.
Right.
So I tried to spread myself around and so that everybody knew whether you were in the hole and had a question and you needed to call me, or you were the guy, trying to find material to fix a treatment plant. I kept my relations with everybody.
Great. On a personal note, what do you like to do for fun?
Well, unfortunately, I live in a condo now, so I don't have any. I don't have any lawn. But I used to love gardening. I had a 20 by 40 pool in my backyard in ground, and all around it, I had perennial beds.
Nice.
I was a big perennial guy, and then I had a big vegetable garden, and I was always getting my hands dirty in there. Now. I've always done coin collecting, baseball card stuff,
nice.
And so I've spent a lot of time doing that still. Unfortunately, in the 80s, everybody started collecting baseball cards, so unless you've got 50s or 60s or before, they're really not worth much, but they're still a lot of fun.
They're absolutely. It's like stamp collecting, as far as that goes. But anyway, Mark, thanks so much for coming on.
Okay, Davey.
You've been a part of this industry for a long time. We appreciate all that you've done. And again, this organization is a volunteer organization, and we would be nowhere without all our volunteers. So again,
one last thing.
Sure.
One last thing I like to say is it's a great industry, and it's a great opportunity for employment. You always need water. It was always good to me. I graduated from school, college, with a degree in teaching, and my wife was always trying to get me to go back to teaching. But I wouldn't. I just love the waterworks industry, the people in it. They're good people. It's good, valuable service, and it's a great industry to be part of.
Fantastic. Job well done. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this episode of the Future of the Water and Wastewater Industry and the Careers You Didn't Know About. And with us in the house is Mr. Mark Anderson, formerly of Caldwell, HD Supply, Core and Main. He's been it all, and we certainly do appreciate all you've done, Mark. Thanks so much.